This episode is sponsored by Matt Herbert. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and, well, all creative people really to live a more focused, effective and hopefully happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 128, 10 Thoughts on Social Media. When you write an article about anything, trolls use the comments to attack. They feel frustrated, but haters are losers. It's not good to feed this aspect. It's more intelligent to be constructive. Paulo Coelho, unquote. I may have got his second name pronounced wrong. I do try, but I'm not sure on that one. I'm not sure at all. C-O-E-L-H-O. Coelho? I don't know. But that was my best guess. Anyway, howdy folks. I'm in with a quick off-the-cuff episode today, but it's one that's been on my mind for a while because, well, I interact with social media quite a lot, and sometimes all day, it seems like anyway, for a long period, and sometimes I'll take holidays from it for up to 3 months at a time. In fact, over the last 12 months, I've probably been off it as much as 5 or 6 months of that time. Just so you know, but when I'm on it, I'm pushing this show primarily, or I'm just on it to interact with people. There's a few friends I've got here. That is definitely part of what I do. And sometimes I'm promoting some other thing, or I'm just on to shoot the breeze and see what happens. You know, a whole load of reasons, but I have quite a lot of experience in using it. Primarily Twitter, I've got to say, is my main one, at fight_director if you're interested, or at FilmProProdPod is the official account for this show. I kind of use Facebook, but not really. I used to use it, and then I just shut it all down. I kind of get bothered about the amount of my personal information that was online. And now I do have it, and I really just use it for forums. And I've got some friends on there. The friends that I've got there are kind of people that I've known usually for, most of them, for quite a long time. Occasionally I'll accept someone as a friend, though, simply because I think I'm on another piece of social media, and I'll go, oh, there's a friend there, and I'll click it, and then later on I'll realise that I've just invited them to my kind of very exclusive friends list on Facebook. But I do also have an Instagram account as well, which is fight_director again, and I've used that. I try to use it. I've never been great at using it. What I'd say though is that film professionals and creatives do seem to still be using Instagram primarily, less so they're using Twitter, which is really my favoured platform. I have toyed with TikTok, but I'm just not in that. I'm not in that frame of mind to produce content all the time, consistently, and certainly the hidden kind of small print on that one really bothered me considerably. I read an article and it said something like, whether this was true or not, don't believe everything you read on the internet, but it said something like, if you sign up for TikTok, you're not only giving them permission to access the data on the device you've signed up on, but on every device that you own that is connected to that, which I thought was a bit much. So TikTok I have shut off and I stay well away from, but I kind of like it. I tend to watch the shorter TikTok style videos on YouTube though instead, which again is another piece of social media, I suppose. It's a browser, or it's a search engine, I should say, but it's also very much a social media platform as well these days. But today I want to get some stuff off my chest on the subject, and I believe that you're going to find it interesting, and I definitely think that it's going to be of help to you a little bit with your productivity too. But before I go into that, in last week's show I raised the topic of high-level thinking. Again, that's working on your life and career at the same time that you're living and working in it, and why it's important to work on your self-analysis and specifically list your weaknesses. Self-analysis can be useful, very useful, the essential, in fact, productivity tool, but only if it results in action. So if you want to find out more about that subject, please do go back and check that one out. People are at the mercy of internet trolls who bring people who are excellent in their fields down to their level. They're diminishing someone's flame to make theirs brighter. David Haye, unquote. And again, I'm just going to say this is an off-the-cuff episode, so I do have some notes in front of me, but I'm just going to see what I come up with along the way. And I'm only going to touch on each of these items as I go along. I do want to keep this a short episode, so I'll just get straight into this. And number one on my list, as you may have gathered from that quote there, is trolls. Troll, is there another word? Trolls. Sometimes it's called trolls. I grew up as them called trolls, but trolling, I've heard said. Trolls might be another pronunciation of them, but basically they're everywhere online. They're everywhere on social media. I had one the other day. Yeah, I put out a question. Oh, what was it? What's your favourite film or TV show from your youth? It was like I sometimes put out questions like that just to get my followers on Twitter interacting with me, because sometimes it gets quite quiet out there. So putting out something like that's usually quite a good thing to get people interacting with you. Anyway, somebody wrote, their reply was, I'm not going to answer this because you've spelt favourite wrong, because I spelt it the British spelling, which is with a U in there. Anyway, I answered with basically saying, I see you're Canadian. I might have known you'd have sided with the American spelling rather than the British. And I got a quote from Grammarly, which explained that favourite had two different things. Now, that, of course, wasn't enough for a troll. They immediately responded with something along the lines of, I am always right, you must obey me, sort of kind of thing. They literally were using words like that. Kind of laughed it off again. And I'd seen that they were a fan of The Orville. Great show, by the way, folks. Far better than the modern Star Treks. Go watch The Orville. It's fantastic. If you liked traditional Star Trek Next Generation, you'll love The Orville. Anyway, I said, because you've got an Orville thing on your profile, I'll let you go this time. And he then responded with, no, keep on going. I want to have a fight here as a effect. I can't remember exactly what he said, because basically I muted him at that point. I'd already went past the point where I normally would block someone. So he's not blocked, that guy, but he's definitely muted, and I'll probably block him somewhere down the line. That tends to happen. There was somebody communicated with me loads and loads of times, and they sailed very, very close, again on Twitter, to insulting me every time. And they were always basically a bit of a dick when I posted something, and I put them on mute for a long time. And then once it came up and they were trying to start a fight again, or just trying to be funny and not being funny, and eventually I was like that. Why am I not just blocking this person? So I did. And that was only a mild troll. But that's my point here. The trolls are everywhere. You need to ignore them, mute them, or block them. It's the only way. And in the words of Boy George, you get the odd person in social media is talking about that will write something nasty. And the trick is not to engage with them on any level. I agree 100% with Boy George on that. If you're getting trolled in any way, or trolled, just shut them off completely. Social media is driving the culture. It drives people's minds, literally. And with that, I just want to add to number one. I nearly made it number two, but I thought I'll just include it because I actually had a few more thoughts on this than I thought I was going to have. But I just want to briefly talk about bots as well. I'll just call it within number one. There are so many bot accounts out there. They're getting harder and harder to spot because the AI is getting better, but they are out there and they're spreading political or commercial or scam disinformation at such a level that you might not even know that you're being manipulated. You really need to watch out for them these days. They're very clever. You can respond to them and they'll respond to you and you'll think it's real. I've had it happen on Instagram recently. A friend of mine, Matt, had his account hacked, and the hacker, which I think was a bot, sent me a communication. I responded to that communication. The robot responded to me. I responded to it again. It responded to me again. That's how complex these bots are these days. But they are there specifically to manipulate narratives. And they are put out there by political parties or people who are affiliated with political parties. They're put out there by commercial companies that are trying to get you to believe one thing or another, and they're also put out there by scammers that are trying to steal your money, in effect, or fish you for information. So watch out for bots, watch out for trolls, and cut them off as soon as you think they are there, okay? They appear to have become so attached to their outrage that they are even more outraged that they won't be able to be outraged anymore. Barney Frank, unquote. And number two, I've done an episode about it, is outrage porn. I'll say that again, is outrage porn. It's similar to trolling. You cannot allow yourself to get pulled into it. And outrage porn actually comes from porn. Porn comes from what used to be the newspapers, the media. And what they're doing is they're putting posts out there, they're putting articles out there that are outrageous, and they're designed to get a reaction out of us. And they're deliberately saying what they know we're going to respond to. Now, what happens is they say something outrageous, we respond to that, keyboard warrior, get on and respond to it. We are then interacting with them, and then what happens next is that same media company starts reporting on the outrage that they have caused by their initial post. It is definitely a problem, and you really need to be aware of it. It's kind of part of that whole bot thing I was talking about there, where, you know, you're getting these AIs that are spreading commercial or political disinformation. So be very aware of that. Very, very often it will come from a media agency that's just trying to get you to respond. I've seen articles that are written based on someone's response to some outrageous thing that's been said. And they'll do a whole article on this response. And then you'll follow that person to their own social media account, and you'll find out this person's got 200 followers. They're an absolute nobody, but they have responded. They've been manipulated into responding in the way that the original poster, a media company or an individual that's trying to get a story going, wants them to respond. And they'll take that post that you've put out there as this is the feeling of the people. But it's not the feeling of the people, it's the feeling of you who's been manipulated to reply to them because they've said something outrageous. That is outrage porn. Be very aware of it. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln, unquote. And yes, number 3 is, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Don't believe it. Like I said a minute ago, you are getting trolled, you're getting hit with misinformation, you're deliberately being manipulated. This is definitely happening. Do a bit of research, folks, if you don't believe me, or just keep on going, keep on sailing, or get your high-level thinking hat on and engage your mind and go, is what I'm reading online real? And I think you might find, on rare occasions, that it's complete nonsense. So don't believe everything you read on the internet. Verify it when you can. Like, for example, on this show, I will verify quotes. I now use A2Zquotes.com. I used to take quotes from anywhere on the internet, but I rapidly realised in the earlier episodes, as people were pointing out sometimes, that some of the quotes I was saying came from one source actually came from a different source altogether. So don't accept everything at face value that you see out there. There was an awful lot of disinformation going about. There still is, really, about what happened on the set of Rust with the killing of the director accidentally. And at that time, I was following a lot of information online, which I knew to be incorrect, but I started getting information from people who were on set at the time. And eventually, about 2 weeks, a week and a half later, I did speak to someone who was on set, and I got exactly what happened. But initially, there was just absolute nonsense getting talked. And really, the danger of accepting that and starting to spread that is you're really just spreading the disinformation yourself. And somebody's put it out there to try and be first in, you know. But that does not mean that they've come from a position of knowledge. But if you're first in, sometimes that will go viral and it will get a lot of interest online. Anyway, point is, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Curiosity pulls people into the scam. Frank Stallone, unquote. Now, similar to number 3 is number 4. Look out for scams. They are absolutely everywhere. And I did, in preparation for this episode, I did 2 things. One of them I'll talk about a little bit down the line, but one thing I did is I had a thing pop up, a sales thing popped up on Instagram for Creator U, it was called. That's just the letter U, uniform, at the end of the word creator. And it had some other name as well. And it basically, what it was saying is, you can get these PDFs that will help you with promoting your social media for $10. And I looked at it and I thought, that looks like a scam. So I thought, that might be interesting for the show. So I started I'm going to buy these. I'm going to buy this $10 thing using my PayPal account. Yes, I've still got PayPal, folks. I've not got rid of it yet. Although I do believe that they've gone back on that thing about fining people for disinformation. I heard that they've gone back on that. That's not going to happen anymore. Anyway, I went and tried this Creator U thing on. Oh my God, this was a scam. This was a total scam. So I I signed it. Basically, it said if you spend $10, you'll get these downloads, these PDF downloads that will help you to promote your social media. And I thought the worst that will happen here is that I'll get some information I can include in this episode. But that wasn't the worst that could happen. I went on and I said I wanted the $10 thing, and then it took me to next payment screen. I put in my information. Then it took me to the next screen. You still haven't paid. Then it tried to sell me another upgrade, which was like $48 or something like that. Then I went on to the next screen. It still wasn't letting me pay. That wanted to sell me something else for $99. Then I went on to the next screen, which wanted to sell me something else for something like $148. And I'm like, I really only want the $10 thing that I signed up for, because I'm trying to suss this out. And obviously, I want a minimal spend because I think it's a scam in the first instance. Even though, by the way, I researched this, and all over the internet, it said it was legit. It was all these reviews that said it's definitely legit. What I can say to you now is that the reviews that were out there were put out by the scammers. And to cut a long story short, I paid for it, and the PDF downloads didn't arrive. They didn't arrive. So I was thought, oh God, maybe I have to sign into their website. So I signed into the website, which has got my account on it, to see if I could download them from the website. Couldn't do that. But what I noticed on the website is that I had been signed up for a repeating fee of $165 a year for the rest of my life. Fuck knows what I was going to get for it. And if I hadn't noticed that I'd been automatically signed up for that, in a year's time, they would have taken £165 or $165 out of my PayPal account. That's the scam they were running. By the way, I still don't have the PDF documents. Instead, they've been spamming me with emails where I think every email's got a video on it, and if I click the video, there's a download link for a PDF on it. So I think that's the way they're getting me the stuff. So they're kind of delivering what I bought, but not what I thought I was getting. And the total scam was that they'd sign me up for next year, taking 165 quid off me without me having any knowledge of it whatsoever. So watch out for these scams. You got to look out for hidden costs. You got to look out for data phishing as well. So be careful with your actual bank details. I put on PayPal specifically because I thought it'd be more protection. And yeah, be very, very aware of automatic sign-ups. And where to really be aware of these things is on social media, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, I presume, as well, and Instagram. And particularly, you can easily notice them at Christmas and at Halloween. You might be aware, I think this was just shortly before Christmas, this episode, that there's something like, I think 2 years ago, it was The Mandalorian was big. And everyone wanted a Mandalorian helmet. And they got pictures of someone who'd built a Mandalorian helmet, I think, some master prop maker, and they said, this is what you're buying. And I thought, there's no way that's what you're buying, that's a scam. And they were looking for like $40 for something that clearly costs $200, $300. And so I was like warning people, this isn't right, this isn't right. And of course, needless to say, the reviews started coming in saying, I've been sent this, basically this bit of rubber, absolute garbage, really, really appalling. The minimal amount of delivery that they could do to kind of make it vaguely legal, but absolutely not what they were selling in the pictures or the video. Those pictures and videos had been stolen from a creator's website that had made them, and they'd put them out there like that's what they were selling. And they were coming from China, and there was really no way to get your money back. And I saw it happen again with, it was like a zombie face mask thing. Fantastic, brilliant workmanship, amazing workmanship. And they were saying this is $40 again. This was at Halloween. And clearly they'd gone on to another creators. And I found that creator. That creator was on Etsy. And they were selling these same masks for like $699. They'd spent just infinite amount of time making them. And what was happening is you were getting in the post a rubber toy mask that's maybe $6, $6. But they were selling it for $40 or $50, and it was just a scam. So yeah, watch out for scams. Specifically, look out for them at definite points in the year, like Halloween and Christmas. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Distractions are everywhere, and with the always-on technologies of today, they take a heavy toll on productivity. One study found that office distractions eat an average of 2.1 hours a day. Another study, published in 2005, October, found that employees spend an average of 11 minutes on a project before being distracted. After an interruption, it takes them 25 minutes to return to the original task, if they do it at all. David Rock, unquote. And that's a general productivity thing. You know, you do not, if you're getting into the flow of things, deep work it's called, if you're getting into that deeper workflow and you're allowing an interruption from an email that's coming in or a notification on social media to pull you out of there, it's going to take you much longer to get back into it again. So try and remove these things from happening. You know, switch phones on to silent, switch them onto airplane mode if you have to, or just leave them in another room completely if you're doing that sort of stuff. That's kind of just the quote I used to set up number 5, which is really about scheduling tweets. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is what I do when I take my break from social media. It's not that I leave the phone in another room, it's that I completely remove the apps from the phone, and on my desktop I use another app which is called, hold on, let's just click it and see, BlockSite, which allows me for free to block 3 websites, and I block Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. I should really block YouTube, but I've still got that addiction thing I'm dealing with on YouTube. But so I block those sites and I remove it. I make sure I do not have to interact with any of this social media stuff unless I am willing to put in the work to sign in and do it on a browser. But when I'm offline for like 3 months at a time, yes, I will check in, because sometimes people are messaging me and it might be to do with the show, and I might check in on a Sunday to retweet the post that goes in about this show, which goes out at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. And that goes out on the official website, Film Pro Prod Pod. I'll log into my @fight_director account and I'll retweet there, because I've got like 10,600 followers, something like that, on that account. That's the only time I'm ever online. But the way the tweets go out to promote this show when I'm offline is I've scheduled them. And I schedule them using a tool called Buffer. And that allows you to schedule, I think, up to 10 tweets that can go out in the future. So I can schedule up to 10 launches of shows, and I can put that on 3 platforms. This is the free version I'm talking about. That can go out on 3 platforms at the one time. Generally, it's the same content. It will go out onto Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the same time into those accounts. The Facebook is @FilmProProductivity if you're interested. But scheduling tweets is a great way to help you to stay offline and not be interrupted by social media, because these 3-month breaks that I take, I get a hell of a lot more done when I'm off social media than when I'm on it. We're comparing our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. Stephen Furtick, unquote. And number 6 is that. What you see online from friends or enemies is the highlight reel of their life. It's not reality. And it's often just lies too, so be aware of it. Don't let it affect you. Don't let it bring you down. It brings me back to the lies thing again. Some people will fake it till you make it. And I've said this a number of times before. I get it. I might even do a show on it. Fake it till you make it is not a bad thing. And it can help you to believe in yourself. And some people will absolutely believe it. And it'll maybe help you to move forward in your career or make new friends or whatever. It's the people that take it past just faking it to absolute complete lies that you've got to look out for. So be aware of that one, but don't believe everything you see on the internet. Don't believe the highlight reels of people's life that you're seeing and think that your life is not worthy. Okay? If you struggle to break up with your phone for even 2 minutes, maybe it's time to take action and treat yourself to a digital detox. Even if it's just for 1 hour a day, it can make a world of difference to your well-being and sanity. Jennifer Liu, unquote. And number 7, extending that, is switch stuff off. It's a big observation that I've had is that, and this is my YouTube addiction, which is the specific problem. I enjoy YouTube. I love it. I enjoy social media. I love it all. It's fantastic. But it does stop me from doing other things. And the specific thing I'm getting on here about switching stuff off is that if I grab my phone, if I'm not working during the day, because I'm a freelancer, if I've not got a job booked and I'm working for myself, I can go and get my phone, which I leave in another room overnight. I don't sleep in the same room as my phone. I leave that charging in another room, and I read from my Kindle. And that's specifically to allow me to be free of it while I sleep. But what I can catch myself doing is particularly if I wake up early, which sometimes happens, is I'll go and get my phone and I'll return to bed and I'll sit and watch. I'll check my social media, and then I'll go onto YouTube. And I could easily be sitting watching YouTube videos for an hour. And the problem I find with that is not that I haven't enjoyed it or got something out of it, but that I feel like I've done a shift of work before I even leave my bed, because my mind has been so engaged in what's been going on the YouTube videos or on the social media. I feel tired before I even get up because my mind has been so engaged so early in the morning. That's what I want you to be aware of and try and do something about. So that was number 7, switch stuff off. Mostly I think people are fake. Well, what do you expect? The fake world we live in conspires to make us all fakes. Benjamin Alir Seance, unquote. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that name either. Sorry, Benjamin. And number 8 is to ask you to be aware of fake followers. This goes along with fake. It's not necessarily a fake account. The account might be run by the company or by the podcast or by the whatever entity that you're seeing it is run by, but they've bought their followers. So don't fall for it. And I don't really want to name them, but I would question Stage 32, for example, on Twitter, which is better when I looked at it today than it was previously. Because if you've got, say, 49,000 followers, and this isn't in front of me at the moment, there's a number of accounts that do this. If you've got 49,000 followers and you're posting twice a day, why are none of them interacting with you? Why? When you start to scratch the surface of the pages that you are suspicious of, it'll become clear who the bullshitters likely are. The first post on Stage 32 has got 300 and odd retweets. I had a look at it today because I knew I was doing this site. I was doing this show today. And I reckon 2/3 of the retweets were from bots. I think they were fake. They're just the example I'm giving. I'm not even sure they're currently paying for bots, but I think maybe in the past they did to build their numbers up. I know an actor who he connected with a business that was trying to sell stuff, and he was going to be involved with that company as a kind of ambassador, and company kind of bought him followers. I don't know if it was the company or his agent. Somebody bought him followers so that he was more attractive to that company to employ. And I get that, and I understand it. And at that point, I didn't really care either if that got him the gig. But, it's basically a lie. It's kind of verging on fraud, I've got to be honest as well. But look out there. If you're following somebody and they've got nobody reacting to them, and they've got, say, 400,000 followers, there's something iffy going on, and you want to be suspicious of them and maybe want to keep them at arm's length a little bit. And if you are the person that's buying them, I would ask you, who are you trying to fool? If you're paying for followers, you can go onto something like Fiverr.com and effectively pay for followers on Twitter. And that was the other test I did. I got an account, I started an account on Twitter. I wasn't willing to do this to my own account because I knew what I was going to be saying about it. And I paid someone on Fiverr to promote this account. It wasn't a fake account. I made the account. I paid them on Fiverr to do it. And within, I don't know, it's probably 3 days or something like that, it had 230 followers. And there was no content. I mean, I basically made it and ignored it, and I was doing other stuff. And to some extent, I just was too busy to come back to it. This was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And when I did come back to it, in fact, I didn't get a chance to okay it or whatever. They'd sent me a message, are you happy with your delivery or whatever? And I just didn't look at it because it wasn't important to me. And when I did look at it, I was like, that's interesting. What I would say, though, is that even, and I shut that account down, by the way, that account no longer exists. It was not, the purpose was not to use the fake followers. I don't have fake followers. I try and remove them. But, what was I going to say? Yeah, but what was interesting is the fake followers in that instance on Twitter were caught and the account got frozen. That Twitter knew there was something going on there, and I've noticed this happen more and more. There's someone specifically on Instagram that a number of us noticed had something like, I don't know, 12,000 followers or whatever, and they kept on posting, oh, great, I've got another 1,000 followers. And it was just suspicious because there was no interaction. So they had like 12,000 followers and 3 likes. And I've got like, I don't know, just under 3,000 followers. And I'll put a picture up of Angus and I'll maybe get 60, you know, my dog, and maybe get 60 likes. And I'm like, why am I getting 60 likes for my 3,000 followers and you're getting 3 likes for your 12,000 followers? So I knew there was something going on. But one day they were all gone. There was something like 2,500 there after one day. And they'd just been caught by Instagram, and Instagram slayed all these fake accounts, and they were left with a much, much reduced follower count. So my question is, who are you trying to fool? I can see that you might be trying to fool people into believing you're successful and therefore charge them money, but you'd be far better off actually building real followers, so that if someone that does want to interact with you starts scratching the surface of it, they're not going to discover that you've been lying. This came up the other day. I was in a meeting about it's a commercial kind of project, and the creative filmmaker that I was interacting with, he had been working with this band to try and get them real followers, and that was the question for me at that point. Is like, he was like, well, look at this. This is their last video. It's got 47,000 views, and I'm like, that's fantastic. He's like, yeah, but look at the analytics here, and he could tell that like 46,800 of those views were all from, I don't know, Brazil or somewhere like that. They'd bought the views. They'd get some mechanism, some machine that's just counting views up, that's watching it again and again and again, and it helps it go up. So that's not helping anyone. That's making you think that you're successful, but you're not. So what he did with the band is not only shoot the video with them, he shot, I think, 8 short promotional pieces as well. And those short promotional pieces then went out onto social media at various stages as they were promoting the main video, the main thing. And they poured £300 into Google AdSense. Now, I don't know about Google Ads, but £300, I think, is enough to make an impact. I think much less than that, and you're not going to have very much of an impact at all. But from that, they got 17,000 genuine views. That's 17,000 genuine people that are genuinely appreciating what they do. Whereas 200 plus 46,800 fakes is nothing. 17,000, although it's a lower number than that, is, you know, far more valuable because they're genuine. I'll come back to this in a wee second. I'm getting bogged down here. I don't care how much money you have. Free stuff is always a good thing. Queen Latifah, unquote. And number 9 on my list is just a bit of a tip. I discovered recently, completely by accident, this thing, and I've not seen it anywhere at all. So this is my gift to you. And it's to do with a browser called Brave, which is a free browser you can download on your any of your devices, really. I use it on desktop, and I've got it on my Android phone. And if you watch YouTube through the Brave browser, like on the website through the browser, you don't get any ads. Hear me again. There are no ads. It removes them. You don't have to pay the $12.95 a month to have the ads removed if you watch them through the Brave browser. I don't know how that happens. I just discovered it. The reason I downloaded Brave is because I found on Google I was getting distracted by all of my bookmarks and stuff that are in there. So I created a Brave. I downloaded Brave browser, and I put onto only the links to my training stuff and stuff to do with video editing specifically. And that meant that I could shut down Google, not go on it, and only use the Brave browser, which would have no other distractions, nothing else that would be bookmarked other than work-related stuff. And while I was on that, lo and behold, no adverts. Couldn't believe it. Fantastic. So that's my tip to you. If you want to watch YouTube without the ads and without paying $12.95 a month, just download Brave and watch them there. And here's another thing that just came up, and I noticed the other day. I was doing some research on stunts in the UK, and because the stunt register, it is not very well known, but the stunt register collapsed in 2017 and opened up later in 2017 as not an unofficial, but it was still the British Stunt Register, but it was no longer recognised by like the BBC, ITV, PACT, and somebody else. But nobody recognised it anymore. So anyway, this is a kind of political hot potato of a subject. And I'd Googled it a few times. I'd heard it from various stunt people that it had happened. But I was like, why does nobody know about this? And I couldn't find it on Google. It came up as the second search result when I searched it on Brave. So be aware that when you're searching on Google, that it is manipulating the answers, and you're getting advertising-driven answers coming at you initially, and there's other manipulation going on there with some data. So be very aware of that. Try using another browser if you're not finding what you're looking for on Google. Love Google. Love it. Fantastic. And I really enjoy using it. But if you want to cut past what potentially might be manipulation, try using Brave instead. Okay, and finally, number 10 is just a tip, very basic tip for building a following. And it's simply this, and I use it on Twitter. I've used it successfully on Twitter. I don't do it very often. I have done it in the past in kind of blocks of like a day or 2 days where I've sat and done it. But in order to get real people interacting with you, and I really do think that a lot of Twitter is bots, at least 20%, possibly as much as 50 or 60%, and a lot of accounts on Twitter are no longer in use. Like they've been started in 2009 and they're no longer active. But they still exist. They don't get purged, and they're there. And if you're trying to follow people in order to get people to follow you back, you might go on to an account. This could work with other things as well, with Instagram perhaps or TikTok. I'm not sure. But if you go onto another account and you just follow their followers, if that account's similar to yours, like for example, there might be a podcast about filmmaking. If I was to go on to, say, the Filmmakers podcast, a fantastic podcast, that's the one I'm listening to the most at the moment, or Indie Film Hustles podcasts, a lot of them as well, Damien Swaby's podcast, there's loads of them, but there's podcasts that are similar to mine in the sense that they're aimed at filmmakers or creatives. There's also productivity podcasts as well, and they've all got, not all of them, but a lot of them have got Twitter accounts. If I was just to follow their followers, I probably wouldn't have a very big return follow back rating. However, if you follow the people who are replying, the people who are sharing, the people who are retweeting, or the people who are liking posts that are getting put out week by week by those accounts, you are far more likely to get active, interactive, real, genuine social media users. So that's what I advise that you do, and you will find that your follower numbers will go up if you do that. But only if you're genuinely interacting. If you're just following them and ignoring them, if you're not putting any content out, if you're not interacting with people, that's all, it's all a waste of time. You've got to actually be using it. You've got to actually be giving value to people, or if they do follow you, they're just going to unfollow you soon enough. And I also use another site called Unfollower Stats, which there's a free version of as well. You don't need to pay for it, although I do pay for it because it's not very much. It's like $29 a year. And that allows me to monitor the movement of followers. And you can identify leechers and inactive accounts and people who unfollow you. Leechers being people who will say follow you in order that you follow back, and then the next thing you know, they unfollow you. That's what I'd call a leecher. So unfollower stats is worth checking out as well. But that's my tip number 10, is how to build a following. Interact and follow those that are replying, sharing, retweeting, or liking similar accounts to the one that you've got. Okay? And again, as I say, truly interact when you can. Don't spend money on gurus. You have to be actually doing stuff. You don't, I want a guru to help me. That guru will send you some information. They won't actually do anything necessarily. You need to be actively interacting with others on social media to really make it work for you. Another tip I'd say is post at specific times. Look at the times where there's good traffic. 10:30 at night tends to be a good time. In fact, the middle of the night can be a good time. I've been trialing putting posts out very, very late to catch people who've got insomnia. And that actually worked the first night that I tried it, and somebody commented on it the next day. So that's definitely worth considering. But I've rambled on enough. Jeez, peeps, man, this is a long episode. I thought it was going to be a short one. This is the list. Trolls, number 1, just ignore them, mute them, or block them. Okay? Do not interact with them. Number 2 is outrage porn. It's similar to trolling. Don't let it pull you in. Don't let yourself be manipulated. Number 3 is don't believe everything you read on the internet. Number 4 is look out for scams. They are everywhere. Number 5 is schedule your tweets. Use something like Buffer or Hootsuite. Number 6 is that what you see from friends or enemies online is the highlight reel of their life. It is not reality, so do not let it bring you down. Number 7 is switch stuff off. Leave your phone in another room and try not to tire yourself out first thing in the morning by watching an hour's worth of YouTube before you go to work. And number 8 is be aware of fake followers and accounts which have basically bought followers in. They are no use to man nor beast, really. Number 9 is the tip that I gave, which is to try the Brave browser to watch YouTube without ads coming into it. And number 10 is for building a following. Just follow the people who are specifically interacting with accounts that are similar to yours in the hope that they'll follow back. And if they don't follow back, you use something like unfollower stats, because there's a limit to how many people you can follow without following back. That's one thing you might not be aware of. I think it's 500 on Twitter. You can't just keep on following willy-nilly. If people aren't following you back, you will be stopped. So that's why something like unfollower stats, which, as I say, is free up to a point, will allow you to identify who's not following you back, who's unfollowing you, or who is just leeching on you, following you in order to get a follow back. That's all 10, okay? Now, in next week's show, thanks for listening to that, by the way. I know it was a long one, but in next week's show, I'm going to introduce another 3 toxic archetypes. I think I've done 2 or 3 shows on that topic, and they are very popular. And I think that's going to be Christmas Day. Yeah, it is. That's Christmas Day. That's going to be out. Not a particularly religious themed episode, but it's maybe one you'd like to get into. The toxic archetypes, they are a problem. If you can identify people like that, you're going to do better in life. But in the meantime, I'll just end again with that great quote from Abraham Lincoln. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, folks. Now take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Himitsu, and the executive producer of this season is Christopher McPhillips from Artos Digital. You can view the show notes for this episode on the official website, filmproproductivity.com, and you can follow my personal accounts on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show itself on Twitter at filmproprodpod, or on Facebook at filmproproductivity. Please continue to support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review. See you next week.